Welcome to the Interview Preparation Podcast. Whenever you have an interview, it is important you present the best version of yourself. Some people are naturals, but for most of us, we can improve our performance with a little help and advice. In the following episodes, I'm going to do just that. My name is David Summers. I've been a professional pilot for over 30 years, with experience in both airline and business aviation. I decided to record this podcast after my preparation for an interview for a captain's position. I realised that up to that point, my interview preparation had not been the best, and I had to up my game for this particular opportunity. I set out to research potential questions and come up with an effective approach. This series of podcasts is the result of that research. My approach to an interview is to answer questions with reference to the Core Competency Matrix. As a professional pilot, you will have previously encountered this matrix. Take this seriously, as it is the key tool to your self-development. Non-technical questions. These are the ones that give you the chance to sell yourself, to convince your prospective employer that you are the candidate that possesses the qualities they want. They are the subject of this episode. These are the questions you need to think most carefully about, to prepare the most for. Technical questions are either right or wrong. You just need to know the answer. Non-technical questions are much harder to answer. So how are we going to approach this? Well, let's turn to the Core Competency Matrix. These are the group of behaviours that define how to be an effective pilot, and more importantly, an effective operator. If they define how we should be as pilots, then at interview we need to demonstrate that we exhibit them. This is your focus during the interview. When you construct your answers to the questions I pose, have the Core Competency Matrix in front of you and weave elements of it into your narrative. Concentrate on how your actions demonstrated elements of the matrix. Bring to the forefront of your answers elements of the 5 most relevant to interviews, namely leadership and teamwork, communication, workload management, situational awareness, and problem solving and decision making. This might be quite challenging, but persevere and you'll soon get the hang of it. Aim to be clear and concise with your answers and ensure they have structure. Start with what the situation was, what your contribution was, then crucially, how your input improved the situation and the core competencies you used. I'll shortly deliver some questions you may be asked, but before I do, here is a bit more advice. You are very likely to be asked, tell us about yourself. You will of course be well prepared for this, but avoid coming up with a list of what you have done. Remember, you are selling yourself. You want to be interesting and engaging. Relate your narrative to the Core Competency Matrix. Again, concentrate on how you have done things, not on what you have done. When mentioning your flying experience, jump to how you have become a better pilot through your experience. Don't just list it. You might be asked what you know about the company you're being interviewed for. Again, don't just go for a list of facts. Try and relate what you've learned and apply it to qualities such as being innovative, effective teamwork, being safety driven. If you're not asked this type of question, try and include what you've learned in other answers that you give. Before I present the list of questions, let's recap. Relate your answers to the Core Competency Matrix. Be clear, concise. Ensure your answers have structure. Concentrate on how you did things and how your experience improved you. So now the questions. What are a pilot's responsibilities? What qualities make a good pilot? What is your leadership style as a captain? Can you give an example of when you made a mistake and how you recovered from it? Can you give an example of when you communicated effectively? Can you give an example of how you have empowered colleagues? How would you handle flying with another captain? Can you describe a time when you have left a colleague feeling valued? Name something that you feel would improve safety in the aviation industry. How do you deal with stress? Tell me about a time you discovered a negative safety issue and what you did about it. What are the importance of SOPs? What would you do if you suspected your colleague had been drinking prior to a flight? What do you do in your free time? How would your colleagues describe you? What was the most difficult decision you've made during a flight? What lessons have you learned from being a pilot? What demotivates you? What motivates you? Describe a time you have had confidence in your ability to do something you had never done before. When have you been under significant pressure at your work? Describe a time when you have needed to keep your composure. Describe a time when it was important for you to keep on going despite experiencing setbacks. What excites and enthuses you at work? Tell us about a time you have remained positive through challenging or difficult times in the workplace. Describe to me a project or piece of work that you've undertaken recently that you feel shows you at your best. These questions have been designed to challenge your thinking, to direct you to think with core competencies in mind. In your interview, you may get different questions to the ones posed here, but if you can answer them, you will be well on your way to a new job. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Pilot Interviewed podcast. I hope you found it useful. If you have, please rate it and review it. If you want to share your interview experiences and what you've learned from them, the address is in the show notes. You can also contact me if you want any advice on your upcoming interview.